Hello there, this is Critical from Critical Media. Just taking a look at Star Wars Shattered Empire from 2016. This is particularly the hardcover release, although there is also a trade paperback. And we're just going to do a brief review of the exterior, what to expect if you come across this, some art from within, plot points, and then a brief review at the end. Now, as mentioned, this did also have a trade paperback, so if you're ever interested in getting that one instead, I understand some people prefer it. I'm more of a hardcover person, but this is likely the cover you'll see of the trade paperback done by Phil Noto. Speaking of the creative teams, this is actually coming from us via, of course, Greg Rucka. Awesome writer. He's worked with, Independence, DC, Marvel. Probably my most notables are the Elektra run, the Wolverine run, ironically, the ones together, and the very excellent Night Shift aspect of Gotham Central for DC. Love that series. That's probably one of my favorite series ever. But Greg Rucka is mainly known for doing excellent work on, grounded, true crime, elemented genre stories. So impressive that he was able to come on to Star Wars and fit right in, because this is an excellent overall book. It does have multiple artists. You've probably heard me mention I'm not too much of a fan of that. But thankfully they do complement each other, so there's not too much dichotomy between them. So we have, of course, Marco Quiquero. We also have Angel Enzueta, and then Emilio Liasso. So of the three, I'd say maybe Liasso's is probably the only one that seems out of place because it's more cartoony. But we'll get to that when I get to these pages here. Now, just for some art and plot points. Now, this takes place literally during the Battle of Endor. And we're introduced to the main protagonist, Shara Bey. If that name maybe sounds familiar, if you've been following the Star Wars comics, she's definitely grown to, or should I say, rose to prominence, her and her husband, Kes Dameron, in the episode 5 to 6 Marvel run right now. Now, of course, with a name like Kes Dameron, yes, these are in fact the parents of Poe Dameron. And if you ever wondered where Poe got his love for flight and his passion for rebellion, clearly it comes from his parents. And you can see how they were heroes in their own right here. So in that respect, we're introduced to Shara, who's more, I would say she's far more the focus of this story. Oh, just awesome artwork and just right off the bat. But to give you some perspective, they introduce her via being the reason why Luke was able to escape from this Death Star without getting shot down by TIE fighters. So, yes, if you ever wondered how he managed to survive and maneuver in a Lambda, he didn't. Actually, it was Shara Bey and her A-Wing that rescued him, or should I say assisted him, and escorted him to Endor. Or the moon of Endor, excuse me. But you'll notice that Disney actually has an archive of ship designs and already in existing positions. And even though Marco Quiquero, he's awesome. Like, I would say he's very similar to like the Kubert's style, as well as maybe Brett Booth, kind of a little bit. But he has still a great sense of positioning these vehicles and creating that sense of, intensity in battle. So love that. That's usually my favorite part of Star Wars, are the space battles. But anywho, through that means, yes, you're also introduced to other characters like Lulo. Of course, there's Kes as well. The Pathfinders, who are the ground troopers who take down the, what's the word? Oh yes, the shield generator during that battle. But just a great way to introduce these characters. Speaking of which, there you go. If you ever wanted to know what Poe Dameron's parents look like, there they are. So there's Kes, and there's Shara. So nice little moment here at the, I guess, celebration, the Nub Nub or whatever it is, that song. But what I notice about this story is that it tends to focus like one major Star Wars hero to each issue. So the first one predominantly has a lot of Han Solo in it. And as with the second issue leads into Princess Leia being the main focus for the next story. And then finally Luke. Now you can see here, as I said, very Kubert-esque which what Kiketo was able to achieve here. And the colorist manages to keep the theme, the tone very well throughout the book, nice and consistent. And they do excellent work in that sense. I'm not saying that the artists don't get a chance to draw the designs of the environments or the vehicles, but when you can leverage an existing archive, why not use it at its best? So here we go again. Just trying to bring up here another image here if I can. Ah, yes. So this here is just to show you the differences in the artists. So I believe this is Liasso. You can see he has more of a, what's the word? You know, his overall designs fit well because they're still anatomically correct. It still fits the tone of the book. But I'd say the colorist and his overall design, it's probably the most cartoony of the bunch. This is probably the only part of the book that's out of place. But thankfully, Liasso only works on this part of the story, like the Empire's position. So thankfully, you can help juxtapose between the different areas and the different artists. And this is, of course, just at the beginning of Operation Cinder. If you're familiar with that, maybe if you played Battlefront 2 and you played Iden Versio's campaign, she shows up right after the events of this book here. Like, if anything, as you're reading it, here I'm just going to try and get a better panel here to cover it. There we go. So this is literally the Operation Cinder, if you recall, where it causes mass storms on Naboo. And this is, as I mentioned, the third issue where Leia is more of the main. And this artwork here is actually more so Inzueta's. So you can see Inzueta uses more of a CG mock-up design, so you can tell there's depth in the shading, and he can manage to grab Carrie Fisher's likeness much easier. They actually use this a lot in the main Star Wars line, so very good in that respect. Not everybody can be, you know, La Rucka in that sense. But very interesting idea here. So as you can see, the story is still done within the year between Return of the Jedi and the Battle of Jakku. So this is just the Operation Cinder aspect of it. And as I mentioned, it's a nice way how you can have Kiketo's work match up with Inzueta's without much of any compromises here. So I appreciate that. But for the most part, Kiketo is the main artist. Like, he does predominantly all of issue 1, all of issue 4, and he is still in the other issues as well. So very good stuff in that sense. And then I guess toward the end here, oh, actually, I think I have another panel here. You know, I'll still use this as a trending point. This book actually does collect the first 4 issues of Shattered Empire, actually the only 4 issues. But they added the 3PO special. So if you ever wondered how or why 3PO had a red arm in Force Awakens, this is actually the story that tells that. And it's actually done by a different creative team. I believe it's James Robinson and Tony Harris. And Tony Harris has a very good style. But just before I jump into that, just wanted to show a little bit of Luke here. Because man, oh man, I love the art. This is back to Kiketo again. And the reason why I bring this up is not too much of a spoiler, because you know Luke is a badass at this point. I just want to show this idea that how similar Luke and Vader can be. So these Imperials, they throw thermal grenades at Luke. Luke clearly just waves them back, and very Vader-esque, as you might see here. That was probably your last mistake, Commandant. Puts the thermal detonators back at him, blows up, and one of my favorite lines, just, we're done here. Like, what a badass moment. I love Luke in that sense. But yes, not bad. But back to the 3PO aspect, the little bonus issue they gave. You can kind of see that Tony Harris has this outlined, very expressionist style. And it's a very saturated ink style. So it comes off very dark and very pulpish. But it still looks pretty stunning. Like, it's a great use of color all around. So I definitely appreciate that aspect. So if you're ever interested how or why 3PO had a red arm outside of the need to sell toys, well, here it is here. In terms of extras, though, not much going on. It's your typical fare with variant covers and whatnot. and thankfully no promotional material. So not bad there. I'd say for what this is, if you had to make me grade it, like I've been having to grade these books lately, it's if it wasn't Star Wars, it'd be a 7 out of 10 because it still tells a good story. It's very consistent. It's a great use of multiple artists bouncing off each other. Doesn't always work, but here it does. And, you know, the little added bonus is not bad at all. It is a very thin book, though. So if I would have to dock it a point for that. It's like maybe 120 pages, maybe 130. And that's with the 3PO book in mind. So in that sense, maybe a 9 out of 10. Because it still feels like Star Wars. This feels like a necessity. And there are other complementary pieces to this. Not so much as sequels to Shattered Empire, but to the Journey to Star Wars line. Because every film had a release. So there were, there was novels, there was comic books. So at least for the comic book side of things, the second one was the Captain Phasma book, and I believe the third was the Spark of Rebellion. I could be mistaken. Essentially, the story like how they got their fleet back for that film. But all in all, this one is probably my favorite of the three. And yeah, as I mentioned, a 9 out of 10. Very strong book, and not too expensive either. So, and I'll just show the pricing there, just so that you know the official pricing on the book itself before you maybe pay an arm and a leg too much. But hey, I appreciate you guys stopping by to watch this video. If you're interested, yes, I have done other videos, not just Star Wars, but just books in general, more so oddities from my library, as well as like new releases as they come out. But yeah, I wouldn't mind hearing your thoughts and opinions, even on this book or any others. Just leave some comments down below if you'd like. I do read them, and hey, hopefully I get to see you guys in another video. You guys take care and enjoy the rest of your day.